Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Unscaled Travel Show. My name's Jeremy Long. I'm here with my co-explorer, as always, Amy.
Hello.
We'd like to welcome you to Las Vegas, Nevada, the Diamondback Land Surveying Studios. We're going to have some fun, talk some travel. In particular, we are going to talk about the wonderful world of ghost towns in Nevada.
Is it a wonderful world of ghost towns?
It is. It's one of my favorite topics.
I know, you do love ghost towns.
It combines a little bit of everything, right? It's travel and it's history, but it's also like spooky ghost things. And, when we started looking at this, one of the first things that we really kind of stumbled upon was there's not a whole lot of clear definition on what a ghost town is. Mm-hmm. And no one's like really in sync what that definition is for these various places.
Correct. My assumption was that a ghost town meant nobody lived there. There were no active businesses, no current population. But through our travels, we've gone to several places in this state and in other states, even in other countries, that are considered ghost towns, but people live there, or they still have businesses, or they've been turned into almost a tourist attraction. So you're like, is it a ghost town or is it not? So when digging into it, I thought I was going to find hard facts. Like if it has less than 100 people living in the town, that it's a ghost town. But no, nothing like that exists.
Yeah, there's no like clear cut. I think it's just whatever people want to define it as, or however, I guess, states want to market it as. Mm-hmm. I think I was a little disappointed when I first got into it because I wanted ghost towns to be like the movies.
Right.
Like, I think there was a movie called Ghost Town, and I saw it years ago, and it scared the heck out of me. But it's more like there's maybe a couple of buildings standing, and, it kind of has this history, though, that's documented, and you get to have this like eerie little, I don't know, ride.
Which some
with
of
the
those
ghost town.
Some of those do still exist, but other towns are considered ghost towns, and they do still have people living there, or they have, as we said, active businesses. I mean, you can look up the definition of ghost town, and you're going to get something slightly different every single place you look. But the most common is that it's a town that has once had a higher population that has declined and often has abandoned buildings.
There you go. Pretty simple.
Pretty simple and pretty vague.
Pretty vague. Well, and what's great about it, here's another very interesting thing to me, is that in Nevada, there are over 600 ghost towns, or what they purport as ghost towns, because a lot of ghost towns, there's nothing left. There's no buildings. There's barely any rubble.
There's like a historical marker that this was a town at one point.
The source is, trust me, bro, something, it existed right here. Right. And so what's also interesting is within the 600 ghost towns, like there are more ghost towns that have existed in Nevada than there are living, breathing, populated cities now. And
we have less than 600 cities in Nevada. Yeah. I didn't know that. I just learned something.
There you go. Which, it depends on what sources you're going through, but I'm going through like Smithsonian and Travel Nevada and the people that would really know the state. Mm-hmm. Right. So it's often, and you have those different levels of ghost towns. You have some ghost towns that we'll talk about that are truly abandoned, that they had their heyday and there were thousands of people and now there's nothing left. And then there are what we call living ghost towns. These are ghost towns that had huge populations or bigger populations, and now maybe there's a few residents left. Mm-hmm. And maybe there's even a couple of hundred people, but it's a far cry from the heyday of the city, which oftentimes the population was in the thousands.
Yeah.
And when you're talking about Nevada, you're talking about mining towns mostly. Silver strikes, gold strikes. I think they did zinc and lead and all kinds of stuff in the mountains here. So you had a lot of this old Wild West towns that popped up. They had huge populations that almost came out of nowhere overnight. And then within a very short amount of time, it was gone.
Well, that's what I was going to say. Ghost towns are, for you, travel, history, and Wild West, which I know is one of your favorite things too. We do watch a lot of Westerns in our house because you like that time period. So it kind of combines all that for you. I know other countries, other continents have ghost towns too that aren't necessarily tied to the 1800s or, the Wild West, but we have been to many of these places. And I do feel a lot of them are very eerie because you can kind of feel like that stillness.
Yeah.
Which is hard to explain, but I think the ones here have kind of a totally different feel because they are tied to a specific point in history usually.
I think you read somewhere, you were telling me like something interesting about like almost every country on earth, every continent on earth has remnants of ghost towns. So it's nothing that it's necessarily unique to the United States or even to the western part of America.
Right. I mean, I was looking at Britannica.com and it did say every continent, which I question, are there ghost towns in Antarctica? I don't know. But it called out Chernobyl and Pompeii. These are ghost towns also. But like, that's not, when we say ghost town, that's not what you think of, but they do fit the definition. Yeah. So there are ghost towns everywhere, but we're talking more about Wild West mining towns that are no more.
And so because it does have this history, and we are talking specifically about Nevada ghost towns, there are some key points. There are some historical markers to kind of give you an idea of what was going on during the time period where most of these towns, and it's weird to think because you would think, okay, these all exist in different parts or different time strands and different things, but they are all popping up and dying out all within the same like few decades, right? So in 1849, a lot of different things are happening in the United States, right? So the western part of the United States is not full of states yet. They have different territories that are becoming states like Nevada, Arizona, different places. But in 1849, we know about the California gold rush. A lot of people are heading toward California for, that initial gold rush that brought so many people out. In fact, if you follow the NFL, that's where the name San Francisco 49ers come from. The 49ers are going out there looking for gold. Well, you got to pass through Nevada to get there. And on the way there, Abner Blackburn in 1849, around the Great Basin Desert, not too far from here, actually, around a place called Dayton, he struck gold.
So what happened? Was he on his way to California and he's just like, let me just get my axe out right here and see what happens? Yeah,
that's what a lot of these guys did. They would see, I don't know. They're miners. They see different plots of rock and they're like, oh, I can tell by the coloration or something like that. There might be something here. And they just start digging around. I mean, what else are you going to do? There's not Netflix.
Right. That makes sense because we did just go take our kids out on a little road trip across the desert. And our son just took a geology class and he was pointing out, those mountains over there have like an orange streak through it. So that's this type of mineral. And those over there have like a green. So that's this. And I was like, that's really interesting to know. Yeah. I'm just like, ooh, pretty colors. And he's like teaching us things on this road trip.
Yeah. That's the difference between I guess poor people like us and miners who would strike gold out west. So they would see it and take a chance. And a lot of times it would end up nothing. They would get nothing or very, very little mineral looks and things like that. But other times, like Abner Blackburn and like some other people that we're going to talk about, they would hit the mother lode. Strike gold, right? All kinds of fun stuff. It's ghost towns in Nevada. It's so cool. Keep it right here. Unscaled Travel Show.
Unscaled Travel Show is brought to you by Diamondback Land Surveying. For all your land surveying needs, contact Diamondback Land Surveying at 702-823-DBLS.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unscaled Travel Show. I'm Jeremy Long here with my co-explorer, Amy.
Hello.
Coming to you from beautiful Sin City, Las Vegas in the Diamondback Land Surveying Studios. Remember, for all of our past episodes, interviews, check us out. Unscaledtravelshow.com. We're talking about the wonderful, weird world of ghost towns here in Nevada. And, I mean, there's over 600 spots in Nevada that you could go and dive into some spooky stuff, dive into some history of these towns that seemingly popped up and went out of existence in a very short amount of time. We're just getting started talking about it. So I guess it would be fitting to talk about the most popular one and the most well-known ghost town in Nevada, and that would be Rhyolite.
Rhyolite is, when I think of a ghost town, this is what I think of.
Yeah.
Like, it's truly abandoned. There is maybe 2 or 3 fully intact buildings. There are ruins of several other buildings. But you can tell what the town used to be. And they have set up different like historical markers and even have some photos so you can see how the town was laid out, which you and I have been to Rhyolite several times.
Yeah.
And just recently went back again. And every time we go and I see the pictures of the city in its heyday, it's hard to imagine because there's not much left there now besides the few main buildings. But it was a pretty big town for only a short time. Yeah,
absolutely. There was, I think, gold or silver discovered in about 1905. And within a very short amount of time, let's just say by 1907, the estimated population was over 5,000. A lot of people estimate that it was closer to 10,000 people in 2 years moved to an area. Now, we're not talking current days where it would be easy to drive out there or whatever. You're talking rudimentary railroads and wagons still and donkeys and all of those things getting people to where they need to go. So for that many people to show up in that short amount of time, and then the buildings would pop up and all of the things that we're talking about now, the remnants of it, probably the most photographed ghost town ruin is there in Rhyolite. It's the Cook Bank building, which at one point stood about 3 stories tall. It was built for an astronomical sum at that time, $60,000.
Wow.
Which in today's money, that would be millions of dollars, right? In 1905. And now it's just kind of this hollowed out shell of a building. It's haunted. It's haunted. It's not haunted. It's a haunting.
It might
scene.
be haunted. It
might be. I don't know. I've never been out there after dark, and I'm not going to be. But it's a haunting look at a town that at one point had a stock exchange. It had so many mines that, they were all called the Bullfrog because it was the Bullfrog Hills. They were all called different variations of the Bullfrog mines, and like the very best like clothing from Europe and everything else would land in Rhyolite and be sold literally out of the back of wagons and things like that. Even people that are well known now, industrialists and financier Charles Schwab, whose company still exists today, heavily invested in Rhyolite and the mining activities around there. So it has this huge heyday, and it has all the buildings and a lot of the rubble that's still out there. And then I think by 1915, it's completely abandoned. Most of the buildings, if it had wood, it was torn down and moved to a different city. Bricks were taken apart, and homes were moved. Other buildings were completely moved to the nearby town of Beatty. And then what's crazy is just like a few miles down the road there is the opening to Death Valley National Park. So you have these wild things happening all around Rhyolite, but it is what I think of too when I think of a ghost town.
The thing I find probably the most interesting about Rhyolite and the most interesting thing to see there is the railroad station or whatever it's called. Because what I didn't realize was they built this building for the train to come in. But by the time they finished building it, the town was already dying. So it never really became a train station.
Yeah, and it is a historical place. So they do have some placards in different places around the ruins. But you see that a lot. Like all these buildings started popping up, but within a very short amount of time, like 2 or 3 years after the initial find, the city had already started to wane. So by the time the train depot was built, like you were saying, and the first train started arriving and bringing hundreds of people every single day to the city was already, the mines and everything were already starting to deplete, like very, very quickly. So you talk about transient times and transient people. Most miners and their families, we're talking miners, not miners, but most of those, they were transient people. They were going from boom to boom, looking for gold, looking for silver. And in fact, Nevada is called the Silver State. Why? Because we found lots and lots of silver, way more than we ever found of gold. But that's how life was back then.
Which you can still see the opening to one of the major mines there in the city, because the city is built right next to the mountain. You can't go into the mine. It is blocked off, but you can get pretty close and you can take photos. And below that is the remains of the town jail, which we thought was funny that this small town, which did blow up, but they had to build a jail, and that's one of the buildings that's still semi-standing. Yeah,
and it's solid. It's like one of the last ones that actually has all four walls, besides the train station. I think the train station, the train depot, actually held events up until just a few years ago. Because if you look at it, there's like electricity, like modern electricity that runs to the train depot and everything, but the jail is still standing. They have a placard for the so-called red light district, which also has, it had a dance hall.
Yeah.
They had sidewalks. They had like a lot of the buildings had marble floors and different things like that.
And next to the Cook building, the ruins of the building next door was just an event venue. And it was actually taller than the Cook Bank building because the guy that built that one wanted to have the tallest building in town.
Yeah.
Which is just funny that people even way back then were like, your building's 3 stories, mine's going to be 4.
Yeah.
But the other really cool building out there is the Bottle House.
Yeah.
The house that was built using like glass Coke bottles instead of bricks. And it's really interesting to see because from the outside you see the bottom part of all the bottles, and they have, I guess, stuccoed between them. So it's really neat, but you can't go inside the house anymore. The windows you can look into, but it's just interesting to see that was a type of architecture back then.
Yeah. And I think that in itself, that building and that whole area was involved in a lot of movies and things like that of, I don't know, some in the past. I don't know the name of them. Check them out. I don't know. Unscaled Travel Show. Keep it right here.
Unscaled Travel Show is brought to you by Diamondback Land Surveying. For all your land surveying needs, contact Diamondback Land Surveying at 702-823-DBLS.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unscaled Travel Show. I'm Jeremy Long here with my co-host, Amy.
Hello.
Coming to you from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada in the Diamondback Land Surveying Studios, talking all about Nevada ghost towns, the ones that you should put on your list to go check out. We have over 600 of them.
That's a lot.
Odds are you can make it to at least 1, maybe 2. Come on. Don't be so selfish. We were talking about Rhyolite, but now let's shift our focus a little. Rhyolite is about 120 miles north of Las Vegas. So let's shift our focus to a little bit south of Las Vegas. And that would be the town of Goodsprings.
I remember when we first went to Goodsprings.
I know.
This was what prompted the question of what constitutes a ghost town, because I thought it was going to be completely abandoned and people still live there.
Yeah. In fact, a couple 100 people still live and Goodsprings. If you go out there, there are dilapidated buildings and kind of ruins of the heyday of the town that are, for some reason, still kept up. Mm-hmm. And it is listed everywhere as a ghost town. But there are a couple hundred people living there. Obviously, reductions, small population from the peak of their time, which was around World War I, I believe. So it is one of these like living ghost town, but it still registers on everything. And it does have an interesting history. In fact, it has some kind of a little bit sad haunted history dealing with like Clark Gable, very famous movie star, and his the unfortunate passing of his wife at that time, and some other things like that. But it is a town you can go drive up to, get out, walk around, see the ruins and things like that. But right next door might be a guy mowing his lawn.
Yeah, that was the thing. I
yeah.
remember there were ruins, and then there was like an elementary school next to it, and kids were playing outside. So it doesn't have that like true ghost town feel that Rhyolite has, but it does still have a lot of history, as you were saying, and it is considered a ghost town because the population has declined so much. There are very few businesses in town.
Yeah.
But it just, to me, yes, it's a ghost town, but it's not that true abandoned feeling.
Well, there are still some remnants of its heyday that you can go and check out. In fact, the town itself was, it popped up on, like so many other mining towns in Nevada, it popped up for its mining of lead, silver, zinc, gold, all of it. The entire mix was found in that area. And you can still go to a very popular stop there, the Pioneer Saloon, which was established in 1913, right about the time the town is at its peak. And in fact, that elementary school that we saw when we went out there is the oldest continuously operated schoolhouse in the state of Nevada.
Really?
So I'm not even sure those children existed. They might be ghost children. And we were out there just kind of hanging around with them. But you know what? Whatever at this point. We've taken so many ghost children and demons home from all of our travels. Who knows what's happening? But the Pioneer Saloon, you can still go. And I don't know where I was going with that, but you can still go. In fact, Clark Gable, going back to the movie star, famously waited at the Pioneer Saloon for news about his wife, Carol Lombard's plane crash would happen nearby. There's still holes in the wall from a shootout, from a very trying card game that happened within its walls. So there's lots of history in there. And it's still like, because of its location and its history, it's still like a really popular stop. So whoever owns it, I'm not sure who owns it now, but whoever owns it now still makes a pretty penny, even though it's on the outset of a living ghost town.
Yeah,
anyway.
There were quite a few people at the saloon when we drove by that day because we were planning to stop in and there was nowhere to park. So it's like, okay, we'll have to check that out next time we come over here.
Absolutely. We mentioned a little bit earlier when we talked about Rhyolite, and I want to shift focus to Goldfield, which is a little bit north. It's on anyone that lives in Nevada or Las Vegas that has made the drive between Las Vegas and Reno knows that there's not a whole lot out there.
Nope.
You take the highway, you go up for it seems like forever. And there's not a whole lot out there. Why? Because it's mostly arid desert. And then there's a huge section of it that is the famed Area 51 that you're not allowed to go to. Mm-hmm. And then it's kind of like dusty, abandoned, unincorporated towns. No offense to the people who might actually live in these towns, but I wouldn't want to stop in any of these places because they all kind of have that feel of like,
if you get out of your car, you're never getting back in
it. Yes. And I've seen that movie
a few times.
I've seen that movie.
We have been warned, so we stay in the car and we make sure we have gas before we get to this part of the state.
But Goldfield was that town. Goldfield was the place that everyone was at in the early part of the 20th century. So the early 1900s, even guys like Wyatt Earp and people like that are noted to at least pass through town stopped for a little bit because they were all trying their hand at different mining operations, right? So Goldfield was a boomtown, and I think its mines, it's something crazy. Like Goldfield's mines produce more than 86 million at then current prices in gold and silver, zinc, and all of that.
Wow.
So today's money, that would be astronomical amounts of money. And it actually had a pretty big heyday between the early 1900s and up to, I think, right at like 1940 or so. But in a very short amount of time, it fell off to the point where now if you drive through Goldfield, there are people that live there.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? I'm going to say this with all the love in my heart for the people of Goldfield. I would not want to stop there.
No.
And I don't want to meet those people.
No. Although there is a tourist attraction that a lot of people have maybe heard of. It's the International Car Forest. And it's where all those cars are partially buried, standing up, and they've been graffitied. So people do stop in Goldfield.
And those people, those cars are from people that got out of their cars.
And never got back in.
And never got back in.
Good point. Good point.
That's where they got to go. You think people are just volunteering their cars?
Well, we drive through Goldfield frequently, but we don't stop. We just take some video and keep on going.
Stick your hand out the window, get some video, keep on going. And it's all because I'm bitter. They wouldn't take my show. It's Unscaled Travel Show.
Unscaled Travel Show is brought to you by Diamondback Land Surveying. For all your land surveying needs, contact Diamondback Land Surveying at 702-823-DBLS.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unscaled Travel Show. I'm Jeremy Long here with my co-explorer, Ain.
Hi.
Coming to you from beautiful Sin City, Las Vegas in the Diamondback Land Surveying Studios. Check us out, unscaledtravelshow.com. We're talking about Nevada ghost towns that you should have written down by now. So disappointed in you for not writing these down. Write them down. Commit them to heart. You know, go out there in some weird places and check these things out because it's a lot of fun, a lot of history, a little bit of paranormal, a little bit of ghost, all mixed in there. So you'll have a lot of fun. And, you know, we're kind of sticking to Southern Nevada at the moment. Mm-hmm. And a place that gained, at least in the last couple of decades, a reputation as a little bit of a tourist hotspot because it's been featured in a number of films and TV shows. And that's one, Nelson, Nevada.
Right.
And normally I would want to leave this one off because Nelson does have a history. It does have a ghost town history to it. So it does fit to the list, right? But I think it's become so much of a tourist attraction. Mm-hmm. Like it is privately owned now. The city's privately owned. And they've made it more of like
it's a tourist destination. Spot. Yeah. It was purchased in the 90s by a couple and they restored a lot of the old buildings and even opened up one of the mines for public tours. So you can tour an old mine. Mm-hmm. And because of this, they've also kind of fixed up a lot of the items that had been left behind. They restored them, I guess is the correct phrase.
Yeah.
So a lot of movies have been shot here. A lot of photographers go here. It is very, I would say, well known. Mm-hmm. In terms of a ghost town. So, and it's only 45 minutes outside of Las Vegas. So a lot of people do take that quick day trip. So yes, it's a ghost town, but it's a little bit of a tourist trap.
Yeah. And it's been a popular area. It's been a popular area since at least the 1700s when Spanish explorers first found gold in the area and called it, well, it got its name El Dorado Canyon. Mm-hmm. So a lot of people, either if they don't call it Nelson, they'll mention it as El Dorado Canyon. This is where also gold and silver were discovered around 1850. It was like abandoned and then rediscovered and mines were set up. And then it even has a little bit of a interesting part during, I should say, the American Civil War. because deserters from Union and Confederate armies would end up here in this town, hoping to stay away from military authorities who are looking for them for abandoning their units. And also they would, hope to strike it rich. And it led to a lot of lawlessness and a lot of rough and rowdy behavior. In fact, Nelson at one point had a national reputation as a tough spot to
really,
and a high murder rate.
Oh goodness! Okay,
disputes were there wasn't a Wyatt Earp roaming the streets of Nelson. It was carry your own gun. But it is an interesting area you could go out and drive out to now. You can take tours. There are mines that you can go take tours of that cost a little bit of money or whatever. We've gone out there a couple of times. It is a beautiful place to take pictures. They have a lot of the old stuff kind of set up, but it is, fairly worn. It is a bit of a tourist trap.
Yeah, both of the times we've been out there were a lot of other people out there.
Yeah, I think they have weddings out there.
Yeah, they have events out there. So, yes, it's a ghost town, but it's not quite that fully abandoned feeling of like a Rhyolite type of ghost town.
Absolutely.
This next one we're going to talk about is a true ghost town, and that nobody lives there because it's underwater.
Or at least it was until recently, right? So St. Thomas, Nevada is a ghost town right outside of Las Vegas. It now sits, depending on the water levels, it sits either beside or under Lake Mead. Mm-hmm. It's a town that has its history with the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, so Mormons. And they set it up, I think, around about 1865. So this would be a little bit time period after the old Mormon fort in Las Vegas. So Las Vegas is getting set up, and another part of their journey ended up setting up this town of St. Thomas, at least with that Mormon group. And it stayed pretty active until about 1871. And lo and behold, people wanted taxes. Other people didn't want to pay them. And they kind of abandoned this city that they set up.
Well, I think it's funny because when we were learning about the history of St. Thomas, the Mormons who settled there thought that they were still in Utah or that they were over in Arizona. They did not realize that the place that they settled was technically just this side of the Nevada-Arizona state line. So I guess they didn't realize they needed to pay taxes. And then by that point, 5 years worth of taxes is quite a bit of money. And they were just like, you know what? You can have the town. Oh, yeah. And we're going to burn it on the way out.
They burned it on the way out. And because they could only pay the taxes in gold. And that's what whatever government was happening back then. Look in your history books.
Not Wyatt Earp, as you said.
Yeah, not Wyatt Earp, man. So fairly or unfairly, they abandoned the town and set fire to a lot of it. Later on in the early 1930s, the construction of the Hoover Dam meant that rising waters from the Colorado River forced kind of anyone who was hanging around, stragglers from around that town, to get out of the way. The last resident left there, a gentleman named Hugh Lord. Which,
great name.
Great name for history. Hugh Lord. He left on June 11th, 1938. Not by I don't know. He didn't want to leave. They forced him out.
Not by his own volition.
There you go. They literally brought a rowboat out to him and made him leave.
Because the water was already like getting into his house.
Bro, he was just he was one of those stubborn old people that was just like, I was born here, I'm gonna die here, one of those kind of situations. But there you go. So now with the water levels dropping on Lake Mead in the last couple of decades, St. Thomas has started to reappear.
That's crazy.
You can actually go visit it. It's actually in the Lake Mead recreation area under their domain, so you can go see St. Thomas. It was underwater for a bit. It's Unscaled Travel Show. We'll be right back.
Unscaled Travel Show is brought to you by Diamondback Land Surveying. For all your land surveying needs, contact Diamondback Land Surveying at 702-823-DBLS.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unscaled Travel Show. Jeremy Long here with my co-explorer, Amy.
Hello.
Coming to you from beautiful Las Vegas, Nevada in the Diamondback Land Surveying Studios, crisscrossing the Silver State of Nevada, talking about its ghost towns that sprang up from all kinds of mining activities. There's a reason why we are called the Silver State. A lot of these places, I mean, there are over 600 documented sites in Nevada that count as ghost towns of varying degrees. So, you know, you can go visit as many as you want to. There's a lot. We are now shifting more to the northern part of the state. Can't leave out our northern brothers and sisters and their dilapidated towns, right? The next one I wanted to chat about is Berlin, Nevada.
Which this one is interesting too, because it's also in like a state park.
Yes. Berlin itself, it doesn't have a huge, long history of like this huge boom and blah, blah, blah. It did hit in the the late parts of the 1800s, about 1897. It was firmly established, but by 1911, it is basically abandoned, right? And it really started, like a lot of the towns in Nevada, with the Panic of 1907, which was a thing that followed the earthquake of 1906 in San Francisco. Mm-hmm. So a lot of money was shifted more to San Francisco. So a lot of mining towns that were heavily propped up by investors suddenly found, themselves without money to keep going. This was one of those situations for Berlin, right? The reason we still talk about Berlin and where the state park aspect comes in is that right next to, literally under the feet of the people that were in Berlin doing mining and all of this, were one of the largest collections of fossils, like dinosaur fossils, in the entire state of Nevada, mm-hmm. one of the largest in the North American continent.
Right. And we just found out not too long ago that this part of the country was underwater, and our state fossil is actually a marine animal fossil, a word I can't say, but you have been studying up. And I'm going to put you on the spot. Can you say it?
You're going to put that pressure on me, man.
Can you say it?
Ichthyosaur.
Is that right?
Our state fossil is Issy, the ichthyosaur. And it is huge, and it's actually at Springs Preserve in Las Vegas, at least a replica of it. And it is just a ginormous underwater, under-ocean creature. So learning that this great desert that we all live in now was once a really thriving ocean. And then later, Columbian mammoths, mm-hmm. this was a hotbed for them. It's kind of crazy to me because as I look outside and I'm like, there's just desert.
There's nothing out there.
There's nothing out there, but it's all dinosaurs.
But what's fascinating, as you were saying, was this particular ghost town, Berlin, was built on top of these fossils, like so many were. But it is now, as you said, like it has the highest concentration of fossils, this particular type of fossil in the country.
Yeah. And that's amazing.
Yeah.
And so it is a really popular spot, and I think it's a great place for families to kind of go out because the Berlin Ichthyosaur State Park is, you're really...
I love when you say it.
You didn't think I could.
I didn't.
And I'm probably not even saying it right. But it's this kind of wild combination of you can go and see real dinosaur bones, and it is an active archaeological site. Paleontologists are out there digging up fossils, digging up bones all the time. They have tents covered in different areas wherever they're researching, but also like just a couple hundred, maybe yards, maybe feet away is the actual Berlin ghost town. So it's this weird mix of like, there's a ghost town and they were doing mining, and also here's some dinosaurs. anything else.
You never know what you're going to find in the desert, right?
That is the weird, wild landscape of Nevada itself as a state. It's just that you have all these different time periods. Just you think they exist in their own little bubbles,
right?
But they just butt up right next to each other. The state park was opened in 1970, and it is quick. I mean, it quickly became one of the most popular state parks, not only in our state, but also on the western side of the United States, and gets thousands and thousands of visitors every single year.
Well, I mean, who doesn't like dinosaurs and ghost towns?
Right? Especially ichthyosaurs.
Now that you can say it, you're just going to keep saying
it. If
I
don't keep saying it, I'm going to lose it. You know that.
Oh, so funny.
Oh,
so funny.
There's other ones too. There's other towns. Another one pretty close to Berlin and the Ichthyosaur State Park is the nearby living ghost town of Austin. Now, we're not talking Austin, Texas, and 6th Street and all the partying and fun and debauchery going on there. We're talking a different kind.
Which Austin, Nevada was named for Austin, Texas.
Was it?
It is on their website. When you go into the history of the town, it does say Austin, Texas was the inspiration for the name of this town. The thing I thought was pretty funny was, this is a town that came up because of mining, but it says a silver rush was triggered by a Pony Express horse who kicked over a rock, and there was silver in the rock. And that got out that they found silver. A horse kicked a rock, broke it open, there was silver in it. That got out, and then this town ends up having, it says, a population of over 10,000 at its largest.
Wow. Just on a lucky...
A horse kicked a rock.
A horse... A horse kicked a rock.
Now only about 340 people live in the town.
Yeah.
But it is supposed to be, it's purported to be the best preserved mining town in Nevada.
Well, yeah. I mean, I would say there's still hundreds of people that still live there.
I guess the old buildings. They still have all these old buildings.
Good for them.
Yes.
Well, we'll have to go check it. I've never been to Austin, Nevada.
I have not.
I've been to
either.
Austin, Texas a number of times, even though my memories of Austin, Texas are also hazy.
Because of 6th Street.
Well, because of a horse. The horse is on 6th Street.
Sure.
I don't know where I was going with that story. I don't want to tell that on air. There's one outside of Reno, just a couple of hours, a short drive away, is... Now, this one, you go from a living ghost town to one that is just nothing and ruins, and maybe just you'd have to do a little research on this one, but Humboldt City. Mm-hmm. Humboldt City exists, like anything else, mining town. It had a very short heyday from I think it had a post office. And I think that's the only way we still really talk about it. From 1862 until 1869. So for 7 years, you could send mail to Humboldt City. And then after that, I guess, return to sender, address unknown, right?
I guess so. I mean, there's not a lot left there, though.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot left there. By the time they started taking the old black and white photos, like grainy photos, it was already in ruins. Mm-hmm. And it is another classic case of these cities that once the people were done, and it's kind of a weird thing now. You think about people moving. But back then, people were just like, all right, we're done. they would, in some cases, they would quite literally take a house, pick it up, and just move it to another city.
Or dismantle it and just put all the bricks and the wood in the back of the wagon and I'm just going to rebuild my house somewhere else.
Yeah, they would just number it. 1 through 100.
Can you imagine? You're like, yeah, we're done in this part of the desert. We're going to move to another part of the desert. Let's take our house apart and carry it with us.
And then you're sitting there going, where's piece number 34? You think putting together IKEA is hard? Put together your house from scratch and
Legos.
be missing a part?
Legos.
You just don't get a bathroom. That was your responsibility. It's the Unscaled Travel Show. We'll be right back.
Unscaled Travel Show is brought to you by Diamondback Land Surveying. For all your land surveying needs, contact Diamondback Land Surveying at 702-823-DBLS.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Unscaled Travel Show. I'm Jeremy Long here with my co-explorer, Amy.
Hello.
For all of our past episodes, interviews, check us out at unscaledtravelshow.com. We're coming to you from beautiful Sin City, Las Vegas in the Diamondback Land Surveying Studios, but we're talking all about the ghost towns you can find in Nevada. And, you know, you mentioned earlier in the show, Amy, that ghost towns can be found on almost every continent on Earth. Mm-hmm. We've been to a lot. Europe seems to still be creating ghost towns. I've read that Australia has really wonderful and kind of spooky ghost towns. I'd love to go and visit. We've been to ones all across the United States. Thurman, West Virginia, which is kind of a living one. I think there's about 10 people there. And the fun thing about Thurman, West Virginia is that they trade off who's mayor. There's an election, they just kind of trade off and they vote for the same person. So
with 10 people living there, they're just like, all right, it's Joe's year to be the mayor.
I called it a ghost city one time and I reached out to Thurman and I got Kurt's reply. Kurt reply from whoever the mayor was at that time, but she was like, we are not a ghost town. We have this.
We're
and
a thriving community of 10.
And I said, ma'am, respectfully, I've been to your town. And, you know, there's not much difference between your town and the hills have eyes. Except yours is in a forest and not just like
marketing. It's all marketing.
Some of these Nevada ghost towns. I didn't really say that to her, but I wanted to. Let's turn our focus to an area called Metropolis.
I know you love this just because you're a comics fan.
Metropolis, Nevada. Okay, so Metropolis was actually, this is in the northeast part of the state. Mm-hmm. Metropolis was a what would you call this? Like a company's idea.
A brainchild.
A brainchild of a company that said, let's just set up a city. We're going to call it Metropolis because they're based out of New York, mm-hmm. and we're going to like make this the next big thing.
Right. So what a lot of people don't know, the northern part of the state has a lot of farms. And even to this day, there's still a lot of farms up there. You and I have driven through them. Mm-hmm. It's really kind of hard to go from your mind going from desert to suddenly you're in farmland. But that's what the northern part of the state is. And this company in New York was like, these farmers need a city.
Yeah.
So we're going to build one. And that's basically what happened was they took a couple of years, they got people to invest, and then they just started building a city in the middle of all these farms.
Yeah, absolutely. They purchased around 40,000 acres of land. And in about 1910, they created a dam. They built a dam, hoping that the irrigated waters would provide for good farming opportunities. And so they did a lot of stuff. They tried to establish the city as, hey, this is going to be permanent. So they went ahead and built like an amusement hall, a post office, a school, a train depot, a hotel, all kinds of stuff to like let people know that you should move here. This city is not going to go anywhere.
Right.
And then, it did work temporarily. Mm-hmm. It got close to 1,000 people to move out to the middle of like nowhere. And, I think it was going to be something, if not for some natural disasters and things that happened, I think it might have had a chance. But you talk about a series of events for this town and what just happened. It's just comical.
Right. Well, so as you said, they built the dam and they spent a lot of money building like a water distribution system mm-hmm. for the farms, for the city itself. But unfortunately, it didn't work right.
So it didn't work right. And they tried what they call dry farming. And you can look up what that is. And it just compounded disasters one after the other. So I'm just reading from what actually transpired. The settlers had an influx of coyotes. So to deal with that, they killed a lot of these coyotes. What happened after that is, because the coyotes were gone, what they call a dramatic herd of jackrabbits attacked their crops, ate the wheat. The farmers, who naturally wanted to retaliated against the jackrabbits with guns, poison, and they organized these drives to, kill off the jackrabbits.
By the thousands,
and sold these furs in San Francisco. Then came no rainfall. Well, that I should say no rainfall came. And then in moved Mormon crickets. And so by that time, people threw up their hands. And by 1920, everything was done. 1922, the railroad said, we're out. But you know what? And by 1924, only 200 people remained, less than 200 people remained in the city. The amusement hall, the hotel burned down. The last store closed in 1925. But the post office, strangely, held on until 1942.
Well, and part of that may be there still are some farms and ranches in the surrounding areas that stayed and were able to, once they weren't competing for water with everyone, they were able to actually make a go of it.
There are some beautiful ruins out there from the pictures. The Lincoln School that they had set up, beautiful archways and things like that still exist. The hotel ruins, you can go and check out and walk among, whatever ghost exists out there, I'm sure.
Oh, I'm sure there's some.
But that's Metropolis, Nevada, which seems like a lot of fun to go check out. Don't live there.
I mean, it sounds like the plagues hit this town.
Also, another place, Unionville. Unionville is kind of like in the center, northwest center part of the state, but Unionville still has a few people around. I think in the 1920 census, or the 2020 census, there's 27 people or so. A couple of dozen people living around there.
One remaining business in the whole town.
I think it's notable because Samuel Clemens, otherwise known as Mark Twain, lived there for a short time, prospected, but left because even Mark Twain couldn't make a living out there. And so he was just like, I gotta get.
But you can visit his cabin.
You can visit it. Throw a rock at it. Does it still exist? Does it really still exist?
Yes. The website says that when visiting Unionville, you can stop by Samuel Clemens' former cabin, and there's a picture of it.
I like it. That's pretty notable.
Well, in that same kind of area was another one we were reading about called Hamilton.
Okay.
But you came across an interesting little piece of information on this city that they called it the Cave City.
So it was. It was called the Cave City. Why? Because you would think there was some wonderful story here about they found silver in a cave. No, it's because the first settlers around there, they found shelter in the local caves. And so, of course, they would just call it Cave City. Things were going so good that they were just hiding out in caves at this point. I would like to think, when I look back on the history of, humans doing things, walking out into places and saying, hey, I'm going to make a life here. I think I give them too much credit. I think I give people too much credit sometimes.
Do you?
Because they just found a hole and they were like, you know what, little Timmy, little Susie, this is mommy and daddy's new home. And this is, we're going to call this Cave City.
Well, you know what though? In their defense, so many people moved to Hamilton that at their peak, they had over 24,000 people living in the city.
See, now I look dumb.
I mean, at first nobody was there, and the ones that were living in the city.
Did they move? Did they actually create new homes, or were those original people still living in the caves?
It does say that Hamilton was the largest town in the area, It had 29 lawyers and 2 saloons for every lawyer in town.
Yeah, it says there were close to 100 saloons, several breweries, 60 general stores, and dance halls, theaters, skating rinks. Skating rinks!
Wow.
People were living in caves just 2 years ago. So maybe I don't give them enough credit.
But it didn't last very long.
No, of course.
It really didn't. And it said by 1895, most of the population had vacated, and it was quickly becoming a ghost town. Back to the caves.
Back to the caves from whence you came. And forever in history, the ghost towns of Nevada. We hope you had fun. I hope you get out there, get on those roads, go see these ghost towns. Find a cave, set up shop. That's what we do. It's Unscaled Travel Show.